everyone, my name is Rebecca and welcome back to...
Okay, I gotta take this thing off, it doesn't feel right.
So as we approach the end of the hiatus, my focus is on going back over the entire series and everything we've covered so far and making sure you're really established in the main elements of the show going into Series 4. That's starting here with an in-depth look at M-theory. Sort of. Since there's a lot in M-theory, I've decided to split it into two halves. This one, which will be focused on Moriarty, and the next, which will be focused on Mycroft. For that reason, in this video, I'm going to take for granted that Moriarty has control over Mycroft, and you can either go back to previous videos where I've already talked about this, read M-theory yourself, or trust me to explain it to you in detail next time. So if you somehow don't know what M-theory is, even though I've been nagging at you to read it for the last few months, here's a quick summary. After Series 3 came out and TJLC became a thing, Nattie, Loudest Subtext-in-Television started writing a lot of meta about the subject, including the Subtext and Subversion series, which went through the show episode by episode, and explaining the romantic reading. You can probably tell I took a lot of inspiration from that idea. In the process of writing those, though, she noticed something in the score. Moriarty and Mycroft's themes were intertwined time and again. In addition to this, several mirror situations suggested that Mycroft was working for Moriarty against his will. Nattie put the Subtext and Subversion series on hold, and wrote a meta a couple of hundred pages long explaining this entire reading, along with the entirety of Moriarty's plan. That's M-theory. It goes into detail on the plans of Moriarty, the characters he has control over, and what his motivation is. Like I mentioned, I won't exactly be covering all of M-theory here. It's kind of impossible. What I will be doing is explaining the motivations of the two characters most involved, Moriarty and Mycroft respectively, what they're planning at each point, and how those plans impact Sherlock and John. The most important thing to understand about Moriarty as a character is his romantic obsession with Sherlock. It defines all of his actions throughout the series. I also want to be very clear that Moriarty's feelings for Sherlock aren't healthy and they aren't reciprocated. He's written like an obsessed stalker, but more than that, his whole plan is to traumatize Sherlock enough so that it will rewrite his entire personality and he'll reciprocate his feelings. If that doesn't work, he's going to kill Sherlock and everyone he loves. That's not romantic. That's terrifying. We saw in an interview in July that Mark referred to their plans with Moriarty, probably just after filming some big scene with him, and mentioned that he's a little bit worried about what people will think when it's revealed that Moriarty is a gay villain.
But, and we were talking about this the other day, that for me personally, as a gay man, the problem is of trying to burden popular series or popular films with having to sort of carry everything at once. You know, see, it's very difficult to have a gay baddie, because then the danger is like, oh, you're saying that gay people are bad. Whereas, you know, that's the point is that everyone is all shades of everything, and that's life.
Since the question was about what LGBT representation will be in Series 4, it's difficult to imagine what else he could be talking about here. I've talked about this several times now, but Moriarty's destructive, selfish love being the main motivator of the antagonist serves as a contrast to John and Sherlock's true love for each other. And because all three of these characters are men, it doesn't create a gay equals bad, straight equals good message, but instead creates a world where literally everything of importance to the story is gay. The way Moriarty feels about and sees Sherlock is also the whole point of M-theory on a thematic level, but I'm holding off on that for now. Also, I won't be mentioning the title leak directly, but if you know what it is, you're gonna notice some alarm bells going off at certain points in this video. Let's go back to the beginning. Moriarty's obsession with Sherlock Holmes starts, as they often do, in childhood. Moriarty commits presumably his first murder when he kills Carl Powers, and he sees Sherlock taking notice of the shoes, even when the police don't. From that moment on, he thinks he's found the only person in the world who could possibly hope to match him, and as time goes on, his obsession only grows. By the time he's become a successful master criminal, he's finally ready to get Sherlock to be his. Sherlock just needs to realize how perfect they are together, like Moriarty already has. When Sherlock gets kicked out of his flat on Montague Street, Moriarty says he's welcome to stay with him, and when Sherlock turns him down, he gets even more pointed and asks him out for drinks. He also gets in contact with Sherlock through the mysterious criminal angle, trying multiple tactics to win Sherlock over. Moriarty will later give a clue about a god with two faces, and he's talking about more than just the car company. In Series 1, he's trying to win over Sherlock both as the criminal mastermind and as the adoring fan. Remember, Moriarty has been watching Sherlock basically his entire life, and so he knows a lot about him. He uses all of that knowledge and his vast resources and criminal connections to constantly trap Sherlock, trying to make him fall in love with him. It's possible that he warns the cabbie about Sherlock because he's hoping Sherlock will come across the case and become obsessed with him, which is kind of what happens. The cabbie mentions his sponsor multiple times.
Sherlock Holmes. I was warned about you. I've been on your website too. Brilliant stuff. Loved it.
Who warned you about me?
Got yourself a fan.
I'd sponsor a serial killer.
You'd be a fan of Sherlock Holmes.
And Sherlock decides that the last thing he wants to hear from the cabbie is his fan's name.
Okay. Tell me this. Your sponsor, who was it? The one who told you about me, my fan. I want a name.
Oh.
You're dying, but there's still time to hurt you. Give me a name. A name! Now! The name!
Moriarty!
Now we come to the central conflict again. Sherlock, even at the start of the series, is a good man, despite what Lestrade says. That's why he solves murders for free and kisses his landlady, and gets annoyed at the morally grey nature of Mycroft's work. But at this point, he's also convinced himself that he needs to close himself off from the world, and doing so has the potential to lead him in a dark direction. One way to talk about a story is in terms of character motivation, and the concept of want versus need. What Sherlock wants is to not be able to be hurt by others. He tries to do this by being closed off and intimidating. But what Sherlock needs as a character is to learn to let others in and find love and acceptance. For a well-constructed story, the antagonist's goals should directly interfere with the protagonist meeting their character need. That's the case here. For Moriarty to succeed, Sherlock can't trust others and find acceptance and love. He wants to open Sherlock up just enough so that when he loses those he loves, it will be devastating enough to make him cold and unfeeling forever. Then Sherlock will really be his perfect match. Or as Moriarty succinctly puts it,
I would burn the heart out of you.
all of this is to say that if Moriarty saw Sherlock's actions in this scene, he would probably be thrilled. And it's a warning to the audience of what Moriarty wants to push Sherlock to become. But Sherlock's deterioration as a character is abruptly halted when he realizes that John saved his life, and he decides to give John a chance. Moriarty is probably keeping an eye on the scene here. After all, this is the first time Sherlock has interacted with one of his cases in years. If he is, he sees Sherlock interacting with both John and Mycroft.
You did get shot, though.
Sorry?
In Afghanistan, there was an actual wound.
Oh, yeah, the shoulder.
Shoulder, I thought so.
No, you didn't.
The left one.
Lucky guess.
I never guess.
Yes, you do. What are you so happy about?
Moriarty.
What's Moriarty?
I've absolutely no idea.
Sir, should we go?
He finds John's blog because he has an alert system on Sherlock's name, which is pathetic, saying how much more well-suited he is for Sherlock. He isn't directly involved in the events of the Blind Banker, except maybe for telling Mycroft to let the members of the Black Lotus into the country. But it's not something that he plans for Sherlock to get involved with, because the Black Lotus weren't expecting Sherlock, unlike the cabbie who was. Moriarty does get very involved with Sherlock's blog around this time. He sends Sherlock clues which Sherlock can't be bothered to decipher himself, but translate to Sherlock, I am watching you, Sherlock, I am coming to get you, and Sherlock, I have found you. That one he literally signs off with 3 kisses. When Sherlock blows off that message, Moriarty again offers to solve it himself, and decides he needs to do something drastic and initiates the game with the pips. He specifically starts the game after Sherlock can be seen pining out the window after John. Moriarty hates Sherlock's feelings for John, not only out of jealousy, but because he thinks John is ordinary and boring. And if Sherlock likes someone like that, he really isn't who Moriarty thinks he is, and Moriarty really can't accept that. At this point, he either has cameras in Baker Street or has eyes on Sherlock at all times. Either way, the timing of the gas explosion isn't a coincidence. He also tells Mycroft to get Sherlock involved in the missile plans case, and Mycroft has no choice but to comply. When Sherlock and John go to Scotland Yard, even Lestrade can tell that this case was tailor-made to Sherlock.
You like the funny cases, don't you? The surprising ones.
Obviously.
I love this.
Sherlock comments that the person who wrote his name on the envelope was obviously a woman, a subtle hint about who Moriarty's right hand is.
She used a fountain pen, Parker Duofold iridium nib,
She?
Obviously.
More on that in a bit. Moriarty picks a clue from A Study in Pink, not just because it was on John's blog, but because it was the first time Sherlock heard his name. Moriarty thinks that's romantic.
But that's the phone, the pink phone.
What, from A Study in Pink?
Well, obviously it's not the same phone, but it's supposed to look like...
Study in Pink. You read his blog?
Of course I read his blog, we all do. Do you really not know that the Earth goes round the sun?
Isn't the same phone. This one's brand new. Someone's gone to a lot of trouble to make it look like the same phone, which means your blog has a far wider readership.
He's also broken into 221C at the very least.
It's been opened recently.
No, can't be. That's the only key.
Sherlock later mentions in The Abominable Bride that he's aware of 6 times that Moriarty has broken in. So he has been in Baker Street at least that many times. So again, it's not a stretch to assume he has cameras in there. We get evidence later in this episode that he has a microphone in there at the very least. Moriarty's opening line to Sherlock is extremely telling.
Hello.
Hello. Sexy.
People still seem to think that Moriarty hitting on Sherlock in the lab scene is the only evidence that he's gay. But literally, right from the start, everything he does declares his romantic obsession with Sherlock. Moriarty overhears Sherlock saying the curtain rises dramatically, and gets hope that this is really going to work.
The curtain rises.
What?
Nothing.
No, what did you mean?
I've been expecting this for some time.
Sherlock seems to love the game. To be safe though, he uses his other angle and conveniently comes to visit Molly when she's seeing Sherlock. Sherlock registers Moriarty's attraction to him immediately.
Oh, sorry. I didn't...
Jim, hi. Come in, come in.
Gay.
Sherlock gets annoyed when Moriarty leaves his number for him, even though he's dating someone else.
Hey.
Sorry. Well, I'd better be off. I'll see you at the Fox, about 6-ish.
And so he doesn't call, even though Moriarty really did want him to. Think about it. You don't go flirt with someone and then leave them your number for the fun of it. Especially when all of your interactions with them are flirting with them nonstop anyway. He's desperately trying to appeal to Sherlock however he can. If Sherlock likes that John compliments him and likes his cases, he can do that too.
Hi. So you're Sherlock Holmes. Molly's told me all about you. You on one of your cases?
Yeah.
Bye. It was nice to meet you.
Except it doesn't work, and Moriarty gets angrier about John than ever. Sherlock works out that the first pip is the Carl Powers case.
Carl Powers, John.
What is it?
That's where I began.
Meaning that the killer and the bomber are one and the same.
The killer kept the shoes all these years.
Yes. Meaning?
He's our bomber.
He should realize, given the long time frame here, what Moriarty's motivation is here, but he doesn't. The game continues, and Moriarty calls Sherlock in the middle of the next case to give him a clue that they've already met. He has 2 faces.
The clues in the name. Janus Cars.
Why would you be giving me a clue?
He also explicitly states that he's doing this to prove to Sherlock that they're meant to be together.
We were made for each other, Sherlock.
Sherlock thinks he can use this to his advantage and tries to draw Moriarty out, but it doesn't work. Moriarty is always steps ahead of him.
And talk to me in your own voice.
Patience.
When the next case starts, Sherlock asks what's motivating Moriarty.
Why are you doing this?
I like to watch you dance.
Not only is that creepy romantic phrasing again, we know from the sign of 3 that Sherlock likes to dance. And Moriarty knows it too. He's showing off just how long he's been watching Sherlock. Sherlock solves the case very quickly and tries to use the time to his advantage to get ahead. But Moriarty overhears him through the bugs he has in Baker Street and penalizes him by knocking down the time.
Carl Powers, killed 20 years ago. The bomber knew him, admitted that he knew him. The bomber's iPhone was in stationery from the Czech Republic. First hostage from Cornwall, the second from London, the third from Yorkshire, judging by her accent. What's he doing? Working his way around the world, showing off?
You're enjoying this, aren't you? Joining the dots. 3 hours. Boom. Boom.
But he doesn't end the round there, because Sherlock learning who he is what he wants. He likes that Sherlock is obsessing over him here, joining the dots about him. So when the next day happens and Sherlock and John have a conversation about Moriarty, it's reasonable to assume that he can overhear this too.
Well, usually he must stay above it all. He organises these things, but no one ever has direct contact.
What, like the Connie Prince murder? He arranged that. So people come to him wanting their crimes fixed up, like booking a holiday?
Novel.
So why is he doing this then? Playing this game with you? Do you think he wants to be caught?
I think he wants to be distracted.
I hope you'll be very happy together.
Sorry, what?
There are lives at stake, Sherlock. Actual human life. Just so I know, do you care about that at all?
Well, caring about them helps save them.
Nope.
Then I'll continue not to make that mistake.
Oh, you find that easy, do you?
Yes, very. Is that news to you? Don't make people into heroes, John. Heroes don't exist, and if they did, I wouldn't be one of them.
Again, Moriarty must be thrilled, both about Sherlock working out what he does and the way Sherlock talks about caring about others. He thinks they're on the same wavelength, so much so that he breaks pattern and doesn't get in touch till the last minute. When he does, he learns now, if he didn't already, that Sherlock realizes things in the heat of the moment when it matters most.
Okay, I'll prove it. Give me time. Will you give me time?
10.
It's a kid. Oh, God, it's a kid.
What did he say?
10.
9.
This countdown is giving me time.
Jesus.
Painting is a fake, but how can I prove it? How?
8.
This kid will die. Tell me why the painting is a fake. Tell me!
7.
No, shut up. Don't say anything. Only works if I figure it out.
Must be possible. Must be staring me in the face.
6.
What did you, but how?
5.
Speeding up. Sherlock.
On the planetarium, you heard it too. Oh, that is brilliant. That is gorgeous.
3.
What's brilliant? What is?
It's beautiful. Love this.
2.
The Van Buren supernova.
Please, there's somebody there.
This is something that he'll exploit in Sherlock a lot. Sherlock works out that Moriarty wanted him to solve the Bruce Partington case and tries to keep John safe by sending him away before his big meeting with Moriarty.
Milk. We need milk.
I'll get some.
Really?
Really?
And some beans then?
Unfortunately, that doesn't go quite according to plan. At this point, Moriarty has realized by seeing the way Sherlock reacted to a child being in danger that Sherlock is not like him. Moriarty's frustration with that side of Sherlock is embodied in John, but it's more than that. He knows Sherlock has feelings for John. He saw him pining in the window and has read John's blog, so he knows about John's feelings for Sherlock. And he overhears Sherlock trying to keep John safe, and John gets to spend his life with Sherlock while Moriarty has to resort to these elaborate games just to get Sherlock's attention. If he really wants to get Sherlock's attention, he needs to put John in danger. And so he kidnaps John and makes Sherlock face the idea that maybe the person he loved was working against him.
Evening. This is a turn-up, isn't it, Sherlock?
If Sherlock acted on his attraction there, Moriarty would have come out and revealed himself as the real Moriarty and said they could share their life together too. The other option is that Sherlock is betrayed and scared and helpless, which is exactly what happens.
John.
What the hell? Bet you never saw this coming.
Moriarty hates it, hates knowing the motivation behind it, and asks Sherlock if there's anything else that he'd like him to make John say. Something like a love confession.
What would you like me to make him say next?
Moriarty is aware both of Sherlock's feelings for John and John's feelings for Sherlock, and knows that when one of them is under threat, it will keep the other in check.
I stopped him. I can stop John Watson too. Stop his heart.
Who are you?
He has an excellent grasp on how pressure points work. When he comes into the room, he bitterly mentions the fact that Sherlock never called him.
Gave you my number. I told you my call.
He follows that up with even more flirting.
Is that a British Army Browning L9A1 in your pocket? Or are you just pleased to see me?
Both.
He then tries to play it off like making a fleeting impression was the point of the hospital visit.
Jim? Jim from the hospital? Oh, I really make such a fleeting impression. But then I suppose that was rather the point.
Of course, given the amount of flirting he does in this scene, we all know that's not true. As he approaches, Sherlock glances at the red dot pointed at John, and Moriarty mentions that he has other people here.
Don't be silly, someone else is holding the rifle. I don't like getting my hands dirty.
Okay, so the person helping Moriarty in the scene is described as someone holding the rifle. And in the canon, Moriarty's gunman and right hand was Sebastian Moran. If you've seen the video on Mary, you already know that we have plenty of reasons to believe that the Moran figure in this adaptation is none other than Mary. So it's her aiming at John here. He's literally in her crosshairs. Romantic. Moriarty doesn't like to get his hands dirty. He sends other people in for the actual dirty work. Then he starts trying to lure Sherlock in by mentioning how impressive his enterprises are.
I've given you a glimpse, Sherlock, just a teensy glimpse of what I've got going on out there in the big bad world. I'm a specialist, you see. Like you.
He looks happier than ever when Sherlock says the Dear Jim line.
Dear Jim, please will you fix it for me? To get rid of my lover's nasty sister. Dear Jim, please will you fix it for me to disappear to South America?
Just so.
And even more so when Sherlock calls what he does brilliant.
Consulting criminal. Brilliant.
Isn't it?
That's what he wants, for Sherlock to admire him and choose him and call him his dear, to see how well matched they are. Maybe that spark of hope is why he doesn't plan to kill Sherlock here. He can't stop himself from hoping that Sherlock will return his feelings. He knows that Sherlock doesn't now, though, which is why he's so sad when he says no one ever gets to him.
No one ever gets to me. And no one ever will.
Except Sherlock, who came the closest and now is interfering with his plans, which Moriarty likes. He means it as a compliment.
I did.
You've come the closest. Now you're in my way.
Thank you.
Didn't mean it as a compliment.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, okay, I did.
Sherlock got to him. But despite that, he tells himself that he's done with this.
But the flirting's over, Sherlock. Daddy's had enough now.
The switch from nervous fan to calling himself daddy is one of the most blatant things. He's still holding out hope, which is why he calls Sherlock my dear, and tells him to back off, rather than taking care of him here and now.
So take this as a friendly warning, my dear. Back off.
He mentions how easily he cuts off people working with him, just to get closer at winning over Sherlock.
I've shown you what I can do. I cut loose all those people, all those little problems, even 30 million quid just to get you to come out and play.
That's important for Series 3. He then goes on to say how much he's enjoyed this, including playing gay, although he follows this up by asking if Sherlock enjoyed his underwear, so we know he wasn't playing at anything.
Although, I have loved this little game of ours, playing Jim from IT. Playing gay. Did you like the little touch with the underwear?
When Sherlock points out that people have died, Moriarty gets furious because he doesn't want Sherlock to care about that.
People have died.
That's what people do!
In response, Sherlock just says he'll stop him.
I will stop you.
No, you won't.
When John lunges at Moriarty to give Sherlock time to escape, Moriarty isn't scared. He's amused.
Sherlock, run! Oh! Good! Very good.
Your sniper. Pull that trigger, Mr. Moriarty, then we both go up.
He looks down on John and his feelings for Sherlock, and Sherlock's feelings for him.
I mean, he's sweet. I can see why you like having him around. But then people do get so sentimental about their pets. They're so touchingly loyal.
And John is also making it really obvious what his highest priority is here.
But, oops! You've rather shown your hand there, Dr. Watson. Gotcha.
Westwood.
Although he has the upper hand here, him underestimating John will end up being his biggest mistake. After making it clear that the best way to hurt someone is threatening the person they love, he goes on to warn Sherlock what will happen if he doesn't stop trying to go against him, saying he's going to kill him anyway, which he probably will if Sherlock doesn't pick him, and maybe even then because he's seriously messed up. But before then, he has one big move.
Do you know what happens if you don't leave me alone, Sherlock? To you?
Oh, let me guess. I get killed.
Kill you? No, don't be obvious. I mean, I'm gonna kill you anyway someday. I don't want to rush it, though. I'm saving it up for something special. No. If you don't stop prying, I will burn you. I will burn the heart out of you.
He wants Sherlock's heart. He wants to burn it so he'll stop caring about the ordinary people and realize how perfect they are. Again, this isn't romantic. It's terrifying. Sherlock tries to put up his facade about not having a heart, but it doesn't work on Moriarty. Moriarty knows he has a heart all too well.
I have been reliably informed that I don't have one.
But we both know that's not quite true.
Moriarty goes to leave, maybe to regroup and think up a new plan for winning over Sherlock.
Well, I'd better be off. Well, it's so nice to have had a proper chat.
But then he overhears John and Sherlock flirting through the microphone that John is still visibly wearing, and rushes back in, deciding that the only way he's going to end up with Sherlock is if they die together here and now.
That thing that you did that you offered to do, that was good.
I'm glad no one saw that. You ripping my clothes off in a darkened swimming pool, people might talk.
Be with you, little else.
Sorry, boys! I'm so changeable. It is a weakness with me, but to be fair to myself, it is my only weakness. You can't be allowed to continue. You just can't.
Unfortunately for him, Sherlock and John are prepared to face their death together if it means stopping Moriarty.
Probably my answers cross yours.
And then Irene calls. Full disclosure, the way I read Irene differs a lot from what is presented in M-Theory. Nattie herself later revised the timing of when Sherlock realizes his feelings from the sign of 3 to a study in pink, which significantly changes how you read a lot of the details in the story. I think this change also affects what Irene is actually needed for. She's not there to get to Sherlock or to prove that he's gay. Not really. Although she does do that. She's there to dissuade John. Because if Moriarty has been watching Sherlock his whole life, he already knows that Sherlock is gay, just like everyone in his life did in A Study in Pink. He also knows about John's feelings for Sherlock and needs to stop John from acting on them while he sets up his new long game. So he uses Irene to convince John that Sherlock is unattainable, either as a straight man or as an unfeeling machine. A familiar idea.
What indeed was his attitude towards women? Was there some secret he was holding back? Or was he just a thinking machine, incapable of any emotion?
That's not happening yet in the pool scene. She genuinely interrupts him, and Moriarty is furious about it.
Do you mind if I get that?
No, please. You've got the rest of your life.
Hello? Yes, of course it is. What do you want? Say that again! Say that again, and know that if you're lying to me, I will find you, and I will skin you.
He appears to calm down and agree to work with her after mulling it over for a second.
Wait. Sorry. Wrong day to die.
But he still threatens to turn her into shoes.
So if you have what you say you have, I will make you rich. If you don't, I'll make you into shoes.
Moriarty probably realizes that killing Sherlock there and then was a little bit hasty, but all of the same, he might blame Irene for getting in his way, and so he ropes her into his plans. And knowing what's at stake for her if she doesn't succeed, Irene spends the episode terrified for her life. From this point, Moriarty changes his plan from trying to impress Sherlock to trying to mold him into what he wants him to be. He knows now that Sherlock won't realize that they're perfect for each other on his own, so he has to twist circumstances just right in order to manipulate him into becoming like him, or else kill him. He doesn't make a move for months because he's planning a long game. A very long game. Sherlock lies in the empty hearse and says he was steps ahead of Moriarty, but we see throughout the series that Moriarty is always the one well ahead of Sherlock. He's always watching him and has access to people he trusts, and he can give Sherlock the cases he wants to lead him in certain directions. Moriarty is an extremely powerful adversary, and he doesn't play by the rules. Going back to Sherlock's motivations as a character, Moriarty can't let Sherlock let John in. If John and Sherlock get together, at this point he'll kill them, and he doesn't want to kill Sherlock, he wants to stay alive with him. To do that, he needs to make Sherlock more isolated than ever. That means learning about his weaknesses, making those closest to him doubt him, and making Sherlock suffer. A lot. Moriarty is trying to break Sherlock's psyche so he'll be exactly what he wants him to be. Again, really not a thing to be rooting for. So Moriarty sends in Irene, promising her more protection than ever if she just manages to convince John that Sherlock is unattainable. Making Mycroft feel even more powerless in the process is just an added bonus. Irene's profession being knowing what people like means she also knows what people don't like. And it's pretty obvious the whole time that she knows that Sherlock is gay.
I think John knows where to look.
No, I think he knows exactly where. I'm not sure about you.
And she also knows that John likes Sherlock.
Somebody loves you. Well, if I had to punch that face, I'd avoid your nose and teeth too.
Most of her interactions with him are meant to stir that up.
No, I was wrong about him. He did know where to look.
For what? What are you talking about?
The key code to my safe.
What was it?
Shall I tell him? My measurements.
If her mission really is about John and ensuring her own protection, it makes even more sense that she'd choose the Sherlocked passcode right away, because if she's doing so with John in mind, John is Sherlocked. Again, no one believes that she was in love with him before the first meeting, but at the end of the case, Irene will say that she let Sherlock try to guess her password for 6 months.
We have people who can get into this.
I tested that theory for you. I let Sherlock Holmes try it for 6 months.
And going by the blogs, 6 months before this confrontation was when Sherlock came to her home right here. So the password was unchanged the entire time. It really was just an inside joke that went terribly wrong for her. Kind of like how Ilsa signed up for Holmes's case voluntarily and ended up getting herself caught. Irene also knows that Sherlock is a good person. And so instead of continuing to assert that she never loved him like she was before he guessed the passcode...
Sentiment? What are you talking about?
You.
Oh dear God. Look at the poor man. You don't actually think I was interested in you. Why? Because you're the great Sherlock Holmes, the clever detective in the funny hat.
Once she knows that he's beaten her, she just vaguely says that none of it was real and begs him to save her.
Everything I said, it's not real. I was just playing the game.
I know. And this is just losing.
Please. You're right. I won't even last 6 months.
Like she says earlier,
I like to know people will be on my side exactly when I need them to be.
And Sherlock is.
When I say run, run.
And John ends the episode torn between being sure Sherlock doesn't have a heart.
He's not like that. He doesn't feel things that way. I don't think.
And being sure that Sherlock loved Irene.
Oh, but I will have the camera phone, though.
There's nothing on it anymore. It's been stripped.
I know, but I'll still have it.
I've got to give this back to Mycroft. You can't keep it. Sherlock, I have to give this to Mycroft. It's the government's now. I couldn't even give it...
So Irene ultimately won, or at least she completed her own mission and secured her own safety. It's also telling that Moriarty not only knows that Sherlock has never had sex, but that he is obsessed with his lack of sexual experience.
Gave me a lot of advice about how to play the Holmes boys. You know what he calls you? The Iceman. And the Virgin.
He's probably creepily fixated on being the first person Sherlock sleeps with. And finally, for this episode, we also get even more confirmation that Moriarty constantly has eyes on Sherlock. In M Theory, Nattie mentions that it's highly likely that Moriarty sets up the Hounds case, and I agree this makes a lot of sense. For starters, Dr. Franklin goes into the episode already knowing about Sherlock's website, as well as John's.
But don't worry, I know you really are. I'm never off your website. Thought you'd be wearing the hat, though.
That wasn't my hat.
I hardly recognise it without the hat.
That wasn't my hat.
I love the blog, too, Dr. Watson.
And the only two characters who have done that so far are the cabbie and Moriarty himself. And it's pretty clear that Franklin was the one to give Henry the advice to go see Sherlock.
Thank you.
This is about Henry Knight, isn't it? I thought so. I knew he wanted help, but I didn't realise we were going to contact Sherlock Holmes.
Dr. Franklin might have gone to Moriarty for advice, who lied and said if he involved Sherlock, it would all work out. Remember, Moriarty has no problems cutting people loose for Sherlock's sake. And like Nattie said, he likely wants to know how Sherlock reacts when he's afraid, because Moriarty is already planning to fake his death, and he needs to ensure that Sherlock won't check for signs of life. Thematically, Moriarty setting Sherlock up on his most well-known case also fits, but again, more on that in a few weeks. We'll see in his last vow that Cam has the Hounds of Baskerville down as a pressure point for Sherlock. In fact, he mostly seems to have pressure points of cases Moriarty was involved in. And for him to know anything about that case, someone would have had to have eyes on them here. And Sherlock wasn't on Magnussen's radar that early on. So Moriarty is watching him here.
Look at me, I'm afraid, John. Afraid.
Sherlock.
Always been able to keep myself distant. Divorce myself from feelings. But look, you see, body's betraying me. Interesting, yes? Emotions. Grit on the lens, the fly in the ointment.
Yeah, all right. Spock, just take it easy. You've been pretty wired lately. You know you have. I think you've just gone out there and got yourself a bit worked up.
Worked up?
It was dark and scary.
Me? There's nothing wrong with me.
Sherlock.
There is nothing wrong with me, do you understand?
And learns that Sherlock totally loses it when he's scared, which is good for him, and he'll use that in the Reichenbach Fall. Around this time, Moriarty gets arrested, and Mycroft makes sure he's let go.
All right, let him go.
And we can see from his cell that his obsession with Sherlock has only grown. We can't be quite sure of the timing of all of this, since Moriarty posts a video of breaking into Baker Street just after John and Sherlock return, and that trip would have been one of the best opportunities to break in. Maybe Moriarty got arrested for breaking and entering. Who knows? In the Reichenbach Fall, the episode is centered around Moriarty's plans. In fact, that was the case for the last series finale as well. It's almost like they're setting up a pattern here or something. Moriarty is most likely involved with Sherlock receiving the high-profile cases that he does at the start of the episode. After all, he certainly built his whole plan around this painting.
Falls of the Reichenbach, Turner's masterpiece, thankfully recovered owing to the prodigious talent of Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
In this episode, Sherlock is getting a lot of press, which is where Magnussen properly comes in. Moriarty gets Kitty to help him sell his big story and make it seem authentic, but it's very logical to assume that when Mark and Steven wrote the next big villain as a media tycoon, it was to tie him to the media-centered events in this episode. Magnussen was helping Moriarty here, probably in exchange for pressure points on people. And since Magnussen doesn't work with anyone he doesn't have a pressure point on, Moriarty must give Magnussen something he thinks he can use. Or someone. Like his sister. More on all of that in a few minutes. For now, the Sinnerman song sets up Moriarty as the devil.
But the Lord said, go to the devil. The Lord said, go to the devil. He said, go to the devil all on that day. So I ran to the devil. He was waiting, I ran to the devil.
As you already know, that's a running thread throughout the show, and is one of the ways you can tell who is working for Moriarty, as well as his role in the story. He wants to drag Sherlock to hell. It also supports connecting Moriarty to the Hounds case, since the most important parts take place in the Devil's Hollow. During the trial, Sherlock makes fun of Moriarty for his attraction to him, but Moriarty is just amused. He thinks Sherlock won't be feeling this way forever.
We met twice, 5 minutes in total. I pulled the gun, he tried to blow me up.
I felt we had a special something.
Is Sorrel?
When Moriarty comes to visit Sherlock in 221B, he's sure to mention how desirable he is now.
Big client list, rogue governments, intelligence communities, terrorist cells. They all want me. Suddenly, I'm Mr. Sex.
He also mentions that he got to the jurors by using their pressure points.
And every person has their pressure point. Someone that they want to protect from harm. Easy peasy.
Again, this phrase will later be associated with Magnussen, which is a sign we're meant to link these two characters together. Immediately after Moriarty talks about pressure points, Sherlock asks how Moriarty will burn him, showing that Sherlock associates these two things. He's worried that Moriarty will target John.
So how are you going to do it? Burn me.
Moriarty says that's part of his big plan.
Oh, that's the problem. The final problem. Have you worked out what it is yet? What's the final problem? I did tell you, but did you listen?
The final problem is what Moriarty is working towards, and it's linked both with Moriarty burning out Sherlock's heart using a pressure point, and Sherlock and Moriarty staying alive, as we'll see on the rooftop scene. It's his plan to make Sherlock fall in love with him despite that going against everything that Sherlock actually wants. The problem is how to make that happen. Sherlock asks why Moriarty is doing all of this, and Moriarty again mentions his true motivation.
I should get myself a live-in one.
Why are you doing all of this?
It must be so funny.
You don't want money or power, not really. What is it all for?
I want to solve the problem. Our problem. The final problem.
He also places the fall and his final problem as two separate things. The fall is just a means to getting Sherlock to that final end.
It's gonna start very soon, Sherlock. The fall. But don't be scared. Falling's just like flying, except there's a more permanent destination.
Moriarty mentions that Sherlock owes him a fall.
Never liked riddles.
Learn to. Because I owe you a fall, Sherlock. I owe you.
Again, taking this literally word for word from M theory, how could Sherlock owe Moriarty a fall unless Moriarty had already fallen for Sherlock? The apple he leaves here is more devil imagery. Going back to the fall of Adam and Eve. Remember, Moriarty thinks Sherlock is an innocent virgin and is obsessed with corrupting him. It's super creepy. He's gross. Throughout the episode, Moriarty shows that he has a strong grasp on how Sherlock will react at every point. And if he has 221B under surveillance, it's likely that he picked up on all of Sherlock's clues to John that he might have to fake his death, even though John didn't.
Isn't it great to be working with a celebrity?
And Moriarty is leading him there anyway. He wants to force Sherlock to be separated from John, and he knows the only way to get Sherlock to leave John is to convince Sherlock that he's dead. And again, think of how he's planting the idea of falls to Sherlock. He's leading Sherlock to the roof from the very beginning. He creates a video of himself reading Sherlock's story, again knowing well ahead of time how things will play out and how Sherlock will react.
Hello. Are you ready for the story? This is the story of Sir Boustalot. Sir Boustalot was the bravest and cleverest knight at the Round Table, but soon the other knights began to grow tired of his stories about how brave he was and how many dragons he'd slain. And soon they began to wonder, are Sir Boustalot's stories even true? So one of the knights went to King Arthur and said, I don't believe Sir Boustalot's stories. He's just a big old liar who makes things up to make himself look good. And then even the king began to wonder.
But also warning him that this isn't the end game.
But that wasn't the end of Sir Boustalot's problem. No. That wasn't the final problem.
Moriarty physically driving Sherlock here while also forcing him to listen to this story is symbolic. He's taking Sherlock exactly where he wants him to be. He sends Sherlock the burnt gingerbread man, telling him to run, and Sherlock does. They run to Kitty's, and Moriarty is there, apparently already knowing where Sherlock was going to run to.
Darn, and they didn't have any ground coffee, so I just got normal.
also starts trying to get John to doubt Sherlock.
So this is the story that you're going to publish. The big conclusion of it all. Moriarty's an actor?
He knows I am. I have proof. Show him. Can you show them something?
Yeah, show me something.
I'm on TV. I'm on kids' TV. I'm the storyteller. Just tell him. It's all coming out now. It's all over. Just tell them. Just tell them. Tell him!
I mean, his job will be a lot easier if John doesn't take Sherlock back. And it is a progression through this series. Moriarty starts trying to get John to doubt Sherlock romantically, and ends trying to get him to doubt him altogether. This part doesn't work. Again, John is one of the only elements that Moriarty can't really control, because he always underestimates him. And it will be his downfall. Nattie discusses how Moriarty doesn't start games he can lose, and shows how Moriarty wins on the roof no matter what happens. Here are the options she lays out. Sherlock actually dies and proves that he really is ordinary, allowing Moriarty to move on. Sherlock lets Moriarty kill John, Lestrade, and Mrs. Hudson to preserve himself, which would mean Sherlock doesn't need any further prodding and they can be together. Or Sherlock will try to get out of dying somehow. This last one is what he does, but at this point, all Moriarty has to do is fake his death to force Sherlock to go through with it. This option also makes his long game possible, and everything he set up is leading Sherlock in this direction, including the computer key code, which is there just to give Sherlock hope, only so he can take it away at the last minute. When they get to the roof, Moriarty informs Sherlock of the true problem.
Well, here we are at last. You and me, Sherlock. And our problem, the final problem. Staying alive!
Again, the problem isn't them dying together. It's Moriarty breaking down Sherlock enough so that he'll choose him while still keeping him alive. With this song, he's blatant about the fact that he plans to live through this encounter. Moriarty's movements in this scene show how far ahead he is of Sherlock. He's literally walking circles around him.
Did I nearly get you?
Richard Brooke.
Nobody seems to get the joke. But you do.
Of course.
Attaboy.
Rich Brooke in German is Reichenbach. The case that made my name.
Just trying to have some fun. Good. You got that too.
He also reveals that he knows Sherlock's big weakness.
I knew you'd fall for it. That's your weakness. You always want everything to be clever.
We talked about that in the video on conspiracies, and it will be coming back in the thematic analysis. Moriarty taunts Sherlock, trying to get him to do something drastic, and finally he does, and Sherlock dangles him off the edge of the roof.
I can still prove that you created an entirely false identity.
Oh, just kill yourself. It's a lot less effort. Go on. For me.
Again, Moriarty isn't scared here because he's always in perfect control, and because he wants to see Sherlock lash out like this. Because if Sherlock is violent and is willing to kill or torture him, it proves that Sherlock isn't all good and Moriarty still has a chance. Moriarty then informs Sherlock that all of his friends will die unless he jumps.
Let me give you a little extra incentive. Your friends will die if you don't.
John.
Not just John. Everyone.
Mrs. Hudson.
Everyone.
Lestrade. 3 bullets. 3 gunmen. 3 victims. There's no stopping them now. Unless my people see you jump. You can have me arrested. You can torture me. You can do anything you like with me. But nothing's gonna prevent them from pulling the trigger. Your only 3 friends in the world will die. Unless
I kill myself. Complete your story.
You gotta admit that's sexier.
And Sherlock finally agrees to go through with it, asking for a moment alone. He can't fake his death if Moriarty is watching.
You give me 1 moment, please. 1 moment of privacy. Please.
Of course.
Moriarty knows exactly what Sherlock is doing, and he even gives Sherlock a hint.
I told you how this ends. Your death is the only thing that's gonna call off the killers. I'm certainly not gonna do it.
Because he wants Sherlock to believe he's dead. That's the only way he can work in the shadows and manipulate Sherlock without Sherlock ever guessing that it's him. Sherlock catches on to Moriarty's hint, and Moriarty pretends to be surprised.
What? What is it? Yes.
We saw earlier on that Moriarty is very good at acting. In fact, he was even going undercover as an actor. He smiles when Sherlock explains this realization because, again, he wanted Sherlock to come to this conclusion.
You're not going to do it. So the killers can be called off, then there's a recall code or a word or a number. I don't have to die. If I've got you.
Moriarty also can't help let it slip that even Mycroft can't stop him.
You think you can make me stop the order? You think you can make me do that?
Yes. So do you.
Sherlock, your big brother and all the king's horses couldn't make me do a thing I didn't want to.
Moriarty pushes Sherlock until he says exactly what he wants to hear.
Yes, but I'm not my brother, remember? I am you. Prepared to do anything. Prepared to burn. Prepared to do what ordinary people won't do. You want me to shake hands with you in hell? I shall not disappoint you.
You talk big. No. You're ordinary. You're ordinary. You're on the side of the angels.
Oh, I may be on the side of the angels. But don't think for 1 second that I am one of them.
Again, this is literally everything Moriarty wants. He doesn't buy it now, but he believes that someday Sherlock really will feel this way and they'll be together.
No. You're not. I see. You're not ordinary. No. You're me. You're me. Thank you. Sherlock Holmes.
And then he pulls the rug out from under Sherlock and fakes his death.
Thank you.
Bless you.
As long as I'm alive, you can save your friends. You've got a way out. Well, good luck with that.
If you haven't been following along, it's established in The Abominable Bride that all someone would need to fake their death like Moriarty does here is a blood bag.
She places one of the revolvers in her mouth while actually firing the other into the ground. An accomplice sprays the curtains with blood, and thus her apparent suicide is witnessed by the frightened crowd below.
And in the stories, Moriarty wasn't alone on the Reichenbach Falls. He was accompanied by Moran, his best shot. And she certainly would have been able to hit a blood bag on cue. Sherlock freaks out exactly like Moriarty expected after the events of Hounds, so much so that he never checks Moriarty's pulse, something that is given a lot of focus when John does it to Sherlock a bit later on, maybe to draw a contrast to Sherlock's oversight here. Sherlock tells John he's a fake because Mycroft told him to, and he fakes his death. While we're here, there was a scene that was shot during set lock of Series 3, of Mycroft and Moriarty shaking hands at St. Bart's Hospital here. A lot of people believe that it was just a red herring, but as far as I know, they ended up using everything else they filmed that day. It's much more likely that they knew because of the very public nature of set lock, that they would never get a chance to film a scene in that location ever again, so they took care of it in advance, knowing they would use the scene later. Regardless, Moriarty slips away under the radar. He might be guiding Sherlock to dismantle certain parts of his network through Mycroft, or he might be onto a whole new network. After all, by the end of his last vow, Moriarty is the one in control of all the TV screens. He's the media tycoon now. And that didn't just happen, it was part of his long game. He sent in Janine, who is his sister, under the guise of giving Magnussen leverage so they could work together, but really she was just learning about his enterprise so that Moriarty could take it over. He's shown throughout the series to have no qualms about cutting people loose, especially when it furthers his plan to win Sherlock. Because John doesn't buy the story that Sherlock is a fraud like Moriarty expects him to, he takes a backup precaution and ensures that John is unavailable when Sherlock returns, by sending in a romantic interest for him. Like I said in the video on Mary, it's very telling that the Moran figure isn't being used to threaten Sherlock directly, but instead to keep John romantically unavailable. It says a lot about what Moriarty actually wants. Moriarty still keeps pressing John to doubt Sherlock though with his comments on John's blog, but even after death, John's loyalty loyalty doesn't waver. Sherlock and John's feelings for each other seem to be the one thing that Moriarty can't change. He keeps having to find ways to work around them. The timing of things at the start of the empty hearse also makes a lot more sense if you think someone is behind the scenes pulling the strings. I mean, think about it. Sherlock's name is cleared, John plans to propose, and Sherlock returns to London all within just a day or two. Someone was pushing a plan together. And since John was the least controllable of these variables, especially with Moriarty's connections to Magnussen and therefore the media, it would be that John making reservations and planning to propose to Mary was the thing that set this all off, pushing Moriarty to tell Magnussen to clear Sherlock's name and telling Mycroft to retrieve Sherlock.
After extensive police investigations, Richard Brooke did indeed prove to be the creation of James Moriarty.
Unprecedented scenes, there was uproar in court, but Sherlock Holmes was vindicated and cleared of all suspicion.
Sadly, all this comes too late for the detective, who became something of a celebrity 2 years ago.
Questions are now being asked as to why police let matters get so far.
This is a big favor to ask Magnussen, and he still really hasn't gotten much out of this deal. So Moriarty arranges a situation that will give him all the blackmail material he needs on Mycroft. Once Sherlock is back, of course. He's probably also the one to reveal to Magnussen that Mary is an assassin, although he may or may not reveal that she's working for him. In Magnussen's Spine Palace, the information on Mary is placed in the room with the Dark Rabbit, Moriarty, at the center, along with all the other people that Moriarty has given him information on. We don't know if Mary knows that Moriarty revealed her identity to Magnussen, but this would be something that would explain their animosity towards each other throughout the series. He'll later taunt her in text messages, telling her that she has to choose between him and John, asking if she's a saint or a sinner. Moriarty stages the reunion at just the wrong time so that it will keep John and Sherlock apart. John also gets kidnapped right before he tries to reunite with Sherlock.
Excuse you.
Again, it definitely seems like someone is deliberately keeping them apart, further supporting the idea that the bonfire is Moriarty's doing and not Magnussen's. If Magnussen was willing to do this kind of thing, he wouldn't need blackmail material on Mary at all. He could just put Sherlock in a fire to manipulate Mycroft. But he doesn't, because Magnussen very carefully never does anything that's actually illegal. Of course, then there's the big giveaway. Once again, Moriarty's big threat to Sherlock was...
I will burn the heart out of you.
Which he threatened to do right after he covered John in explosives. Here, John is literally put in a fire. These things aren't just subtextually related. They're being orchestrated by the same person. Moriarty knows that Sherlock will feel tremendously guilty if John still isn't safe when he returns, because that was the whole point of him leaving. He'll feel so guilty he'll close himself off even more. Mary takes the skip code to Sherlock despite recognizing it herself and so understanding it herself.
It's a skip code.
First word, then every third. Save John Watson. Now.
Sherlock frantically pulls John out of a fire and exposes his pressure point to the cameras watching. Moriarty sets up a lot of cameras. The bonfire also conveniently clues Sherlock into the terrorist plot.
Lord Moran vanishes. You're kidnapped and nearly burned to death at a fireworks party. What's the date, John? Today's date?
November... Oh, God.
The kind of intentional hinting that only Moriarty does. Moriarty always wants Sherlock to solve the puzzle, so he'll continue along the path he wants. And Sherlock has no idea what's going on.
Last night, who did that? And why did they target me?
I don't know.
Is it someone trying to get to you through me? Is it something to do with this terrorist thing you talked about?
I don't know. I can't see the pattern. It's too nebulous.
See, this is why Moriarty wanted to fake his death. Back in series 1 and 2, Sherlock would have seen this kind of thing and assumed it was Moriarty. Now, though, that he believes Moriarty is dead, he's completely clueless. And so he's even more unsuspecting. Even at the end of the episode, he still doesn't know what's going on.
I'm still waiting. Why did they try and kill me? If they knew you were onto them, why come after me? Put me in the bonfire.
I don't know.
I don't like not knowing.
Notice that it doesn't fade to Magnussen when they're talking about who's responsible, but instead when they go to face the press.
Time to go and be Sherlock Holmes.
Of course, the last time they were in the stairwell before facing the press, they were dealing with Moriarty.
Will I run to the rock? Please
Ready?
pardon me, I run to the rock.
These two scenes are so similar to let us know that Magnussen was helping Moriarty at the time, and that Moriarty is still the one running things, just like he was in that scene. Now, the sign of 3 is where things with M-Theory get a little bit confusing, because Nattie's update about when Sherlock realizes his feelings changes this episode probably the most. Obviously, Moriarty wants John to marry his agent, because that keeps John away from Sherlock, and keeps Sherlock feeling lost and heartbroken. And he probably knows that Mary will rub it in as much as possible.
John says he's the most unsociable man he's ever met.
He is. He's the most unsociable. That's why he's bouncing around him like a puppy.
Oh, Sherlock. Neither of us were the first, you know.
Stop smiling.
It's my wedding day.
He also lets Janine go in at this point, both to set up what he wants to happen in his last vow, and to keep an eye on Sherlock and keep him thinking about romance and how lonely he is.
But no sex, okay?
Sorry.
You don't have to look so scared. I'm only messing. Bridesmaid, best man, it's a bit traditional.
Is it?
But not obligatory.
That's the sort of thing you're looking for. The man over there in blue is your best bet. Recently divorced doctor with the ginger cat.
He's nice.
Traces of 2 leading brands of deodorant, both advertised for their strength, suggestive of a chronic body odor problem manifesting under stress.
Okay, done there. What about his friend?
Long-term relationship, compulsive cheat.
Seriously?
Waterproof cover in a smartphone. Yet his complexion doesn't indicate outdoor work. Suggests he's in the habit of taking his phone into the shower with him, which means he often receives texts and emails he'd rather went unseen.
Can I keep you?
Do you like solving crime?
Do you have a vacancy?
We can guess that Janine is Moriarty's sister mostly through her appearance, her accent, and the fact that Moriarty had a sibling named James, Janine being a small twist on that name. But it's not likely that he sets up the case in this episode because there doesn't really seem to be a way that he could. Jonathan Small is very much acting on his own, and so he can't be staging Sherlock's revelation that he could have been with John if he had only spoken to him. In fact, this kind of revelation is exactly the thing that goes against Moriarty's plans. He doesn't want Sherlock to think that talking to John is an easy thing. He wants it to seem insurmountable and difficult. Moriarty might never have planned for this outcome, but maybe he did, and that's one of the reasons why Mary having genuine feelings for John works. Moriarty knows that he can count on her to do anything to keep John, even if she's mad at Moriarty. And so Mary either intentionally gets pregnant or feigns pregnancy to keep John with her. And Sherlock and John still don't talk after the wedding, and Sherlock is left lonelier than ever. Whatever is happening with Moriarty's plan in this episode specifically, Moriarty knows Sherlock is thoroughly heartbroken by the end of the episode from Sherlock's blog post, and he makes sure to rub it in. And so we come to his last vow. Remember what I said about series finales always revolving around Moriarty's plans? That didn't stop with the Reichenbach fall. Moriarty still hasn't resolved his problem of using a pressure point to make Sherlock choose him. In fact, he still won't do that in this episode, but he gets closer. One of the things he wants from Sherlock is to abandon his morals. He doesn't want Sherlock to be on the side of the angels, he wants Sherlock to join him in hell. He tried to provoke violence in him on the roof. That's also his plan here. Moriarty's pieces at this point are Mary, Janine, Magnussen and Mycroft. And again, he has no problems betraying anyone he works with. He also needs a new infrastructure after Sherlock took care of most of his old network, and so he needs to take over Magnussen's. To do that, he has to get rid of Magnussen. Moriarty doesn't like to get his hands dirty if he can help it, and he can kill two birds with one stone by pushing Sherlock to kill Magnussen for him. Because if Sherlock kills someone, well then, maybe he'll realize they're not so different after all. I mean, there's a world of difference between killing someone to keep the person you love safe and killing someone to keep the person you think you love with you against their will, despite knowing they wouldn't choose you on their own, but I don't think Moriarty sees distinctions like that. Mary doesn't either. He has 3 people he can send in to put Sherlock on Magnussen's trail, even if nothing else does. He can push Janine, Mary, or Mycroft to ask Sherlock for help dealing with Magnussen. Mary eventually pulls this trick on her own, sort of, but only as a last resort. And it's the only thing that keeps Moriarty's plan from going off the rails when she acts out. She won't willingly risk exposing herself, and Moriarty knows that. His plan was to trick her into doing it, which is what he kind of does. Sherlock actually gets put on the scent by Lady Smallwood, but again, that works fine for Moriarty. It's likely that he guessed that one of the government members might end up going to Sherlock eventually anyway. Meanwhile, Janine keeps Mary out of the office, while she gets more and more fed up with her situation.
Nicely put, John.
But is it Sherlock Holmes you want? Because I've not seen him in ages.
About a month. Who is Sherlock Holmes? See? That does happen.
Again, Mary is frustrated with Moriarty and Magnussen and Sherlock. She will act out if given the opportunity. Moriarty probably knows this about her. After all, he controls most of his players extremely well. But Moriarty probably gives her permission to go after Magnussen, which would explain why she doesn't immediately kill him. He might have told her to get the papers first. Or she might just want the papers back herself anyway, not knowing that they don't really exist. Moriarty, on the other hand, would know this from Janine. Janine not only enters a relationship with someone she already knows is gay, and brags about it in front of John like Irene did.
Where's Cheryl?
Cheryl. He's just having a bath. I'm sure he'll be out in a minute.
Oh, like he ever is.
Yeah.
And blatantly hears Sherlock's plans for Magnussen, her boss, without commenting on it or thinking it's weird at all.
Sorry, not dressed. Has everybody gone? I heard shouting.
She also tells Sherlock that Magnussen will be out of the office right when Moriarty needs him to be in there. She's leading him there on purpose. She's also framed in such a way that she's given devil horns in this scene, another hint of who she's working with.
Have a lovely day. Call me later.
I might do. I might call you.
We saw similar imagery with Mary in the last episode. When Magnussen comes to 221B, his eyes roam the room looking for cameras, and he refuses to use the bathroom if it's bugged like the rest of the flat.
I'm aware you do not make copies of sensitive documents.
Is it like the rest of the flat?
Sir?
The bathroom?
Yes, sir.
Maybe not then.
The guard who patted down John already knows what the interior of 221B looks like, which is another clue. If they're Moriarty's cameras, that's more proof that Moriarty already has people in place close to Magnussen. He's ready to take over. After the meeting, Sherlock is sure that this is the perfect time to get the papers. If there are still cameras in Baker Street, which that last scene seemed to very strongly imply, Moriarty overhears this and knows that it's the night, and so sends Mary in. Mary climbs the building like Jiju did in The Blind Banker, showing she's just another agent caught in the web. Moriarty's plan here is to force Mary to reveal that she's an assassin and get Sherlock to help her. He knows Sherlock will because Sherlock saved Irene in the end, even after everything she did to him. He's also sure that Mary won't try to hurt him, not just because everyone who works for him probably knows what happens if you hurt Sherlock, but if John is there with him, it's very unlikely that she'll try to kill Sherlock in front of him. But things don't quite work out. Sherlock goes into the room alone, and Mary can't resist the opportunity to be rid of Sherlock, even with her orders.
What do you do now? Kill us both?
Mary, whatever he's got on you, let me help.
Oh, Sherlock, if you take one more step, I swear I will kill you.
No, Mrs. Watson. You won't.
So she acts out and takes a shot that she's pretty sure will kill Sherlock, but leaves just the chance that he'll live as an excuse. Again, in full disclosure, this is a divergence from M theory, but the evidence I pointed out in the His Last Vow video about Magnussen being the one to call the ambulance, the flipping the coin imagery, and the way Mary smiles in the scene all make this the most logical assumption for me. But even if she did mean for Sherlock to live, the fact that she's still working for Moriarty either way means that that doesn't change too much. Nattie also points out the many parallels between this scene and the Reichenbach fall, which is a subtle clue that Moriarty Moriarty is still at work here, although he's not behind Sherlock's near death here. He doesn't want Sherlock to die. So Mary seriously messes things up, but Moriarty's plans have backup plans. Like the cabbie said in A Study in Pink, this whole thing is a game of chess. He knows Mary will try to keep John, and even if she doesn't succeed, he already has Janine in place, again planting the idea that Sherlock is a straight sociopath. That move tends to work on John really well, so even if Mary is out of the picture now, the plan can still continue. Sadly, Sherlock does exactly what Moriarty would want and continues to help Mary even after she shot him, because he's terrified of what she might do to John. Moriarty's even the one who voices this fear in his head.
It's him that I worry about the most. That wife. You're letting him down, Sherlock. John Watson is definitely in danger.
Janine, meanwhile, has been busy spreading lies about Sherlock's sexuality.
I'm buying a cottage. I made a lot of money out of you, mister. Nothing hits the spot like revenge or profits.
You didn't give these stories to Magnussen, did you?
God, no. One of his rivals, he was spitting.
And explicitly mentioning that Sherlock would never have sex with John. Again, most of Moriarty's agents seem to be in place either to keep John from realizing that Sherlock is in love with him, or to keep Sherlock from realizing the same about John, which again is very telling for what Moriarty wants. Sherlock continues to help Mary for John's sake and eventually goes to Appledore. Moriarty knows that Sherlock wants things to be clever, and so knows that Sherlock will believe that the Appledore vaults are real, even without having cameras in Baker Street when Sherlock was talking about the Appledore vault. The cameras just make it certain that he knows this. And so he knows what will happen when Sherlock goes to confront Magnussen. Sherlock will find himself helpless and have no choice but to make a desperate measure to try to salvage things. In this case, killing Magnussen. There are a lot of parallels between Magnussen and Moriarty in this scene, from the fairy tale language.
Well, look how you care about John Watson. Your damsel in distress.
To the talk of pressure points.
Mycroft's pressure point is his junkie detective brother, Sherlock. Sherlock's pressure point is his best friend, John Watson. John Watson's pressure point is his wife. I own John Watson's wife. I own Mycroft.
To the way he knows that Sherlock's weakness is that he wants things to be clever.
Because Sherlock Holmes has made one enormous mistake, which will destroy the lives of everyone he loves. And everything he holds dear.
He even uses a line Mary used earlier to show that they have a mutual acquaintance.
I don't understand.
You should have that on a t-shirt.
I don't shave for Sherlock Holmes.
You should put that on a t-shirt.
He also takes credit for the bonfire, but again, we know that couldn't have been him. He reveals that there are no vaults, and Sherlock is stunned.
What vaults? There are no vaults beneath this building. They're all in here.
The Appledore vaults are my mind palace.
Outside, he makes Sherlock watch him flick John in the eye, believing that Sherlock is harmless.
Unless you let me flick your face.
Little does he know. He also mentions that he's done this to Janine before.
Janine managed it once. She makes the funniest noises.
This means he has some big secret on Janine, and in this reading, it would be that Magnussen knows that Moriarty is alive and threatened to reveal it if Janine didn't go along with it. Magnussen tends to blackmail either siblings or lovers. Sherlock knows there's only one way to keep John from going to prison for his mistake, and so he waits till everyone arrives and kills Magnussen, just like Moriarty hoped he would.
Sorry, no chance for you to be a hero this time, Mr. Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, stand away from that man. Do it now.
Oh, do your research. I'm not a hero. I'm a high-functioning sociopath. Merry Christmas! Get away from me, John! Stay well back!
Now we come to the final divergence in M-theory. And this is one I actually had the chance to talk to Nattie a little bit about, and she agrees with me. M-theory stipulates that Sherlock already suspects that Moriarty is alive before the end of his last vow, and knows that Mary is working for him, because in context, that was what made the most sense. I mean, we all assume that the assassin who married John was put there by the man who swore to burn out Sherlock's heart. Why wouldn't Sherlock do the same? But after the abominable bride, it's obvious that Sherlock has no idea who Mary is working with, and absolutely no clue that Moriarty is alive. In fact, he's deeply in denial about that throughout the episode, and even at the end, he is sure that Moriarty's return is just a trick. Maybe one even put there by Mary herself.
Sherlock, hang on, explain. Moriarty's alive then?
I never said he was alive, I said he was back.
So he's dead.
Of course he's dead. He blew his own brains out. No one survives that. I just went to the trouble of an overdose to prove it. Moriarty is dead. No question. But more importantly, I know exactly what he's going to do next.
Which kind of changes your view of the end of his last vow, when Moriarty shows up out of nowhere, suddenly in control of every screen in the country.
How is this possible?
We don't know. It's on every screen in the country, every screen simultaneously.
Has the Prime Minister been told? And Mycroft?
But that's not possible. That is simply not possible.
He needs me this time.
Did you miss me? 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 Did you miss me?
England.
Again, that's gonna be important in the theme video. Sherlock still has no idea what's happening, and so he's totally unprepared. We don't know at this point when exactly Moriarty will reveal himself, or how. My theory is that it won't be revealed to Sherlock for sure until sometime towards the end of The Lying Detective, which is why they're still keeping that episode 3 title a secret. It's a bit of a spoiler. But we don't know. It could be clear from the start, but that kind of takes away from the gut punch Sherlock will have when he realizes that Moriarty really is back. Even if Moriarty isn't explicitly back right away, we know he's going to return because, again, his main goal still hasn't been achieved, and he hasn't fulfilled his role yet. He started out with the intent to win over Sherlock, threatened to burn out his heart, and inform Sherlock that their final problem will be using his closest pressure point and trying to force Sherlock to choose him. Until that problem is solved, Moriarty is not going anywhere. This will likely be done by threatening John in what will be the most obvious Garradeb scenario yet, and will also be finally explicit that the bonfire scene was Moriarty. But unfortunately, this moment will create a very unexpected reaction in John. Again, John's reactions are the thing he can never count on, and it's very likely that John will be the one who ultimately defeats him. And just think how that will make Moriarty feel. Not even killed at Sherlock's hands, which would give him some sort of satisfaction, but killed by the ordinary, boring John Watson. Very satisfying. That's what he gets for underestimating him. We were also told in The Abominable Bride that Moriarty will be defeated when Sherlock and John start working together. Sherlock realizes now that keeping things from John is what got him into this mess. And after The Abominable Bride, he's so much closer to achieving what he needs as a character, much to Moriarty's detriment. Sure, he'll be shocked and frightened when he learns that Moriarty is still alive, and he'll be frantic when John is in danger, but he's in less danger of turning into what Moriarty wants him to be than he's ever been, because he's made the conscious choice to trust John, to let him into his plans and eventually in on his feelings. And when he follows through on that, Moriarty, even with all of his power and all of his connections, doesn't stand a chance. Mostly thematically speaking, but again, soon! So that concludes part 1 of M Theory. The main things I hope you take away from this video are Moriarty's romantic obsession with Sherlock, how he's willing to do anything to make Sherlock fall in love with him, and his nearly unlimited power in the world of the story as long as John and Sherlock aren't communicating. I'll be covering the Mycroft angle in the next video, which is a large part of what I left out, but please keep in mind that I'm condensing all of M Theory into 2 videos, which will probably total around 30 pages, not 200. So if you have time, I really recommend reading M Theory. There are so many details I have to gloss over here, and it's such an entertaining read. Even with the updates I mentioned here, it's still well worth reading. There are so many little nuggets, and just, it's very good. And if you do read it, my thematic analysis video will make even more sense. I promise. Also, I'm very excited about the thematic analysis video, if you cannot tell. A huge thank you to Nattie, Loudest Subtext in Television, for writing this wonderful piece of meta, for giving me permission to make videos specifically talking about it, and for all of your work for the fandom in general. It really still is making a difference. Next time, I'll be talking about Mycroft Holmes and his many mistakes. Until then, thank you for watching, and get ready to believe.